From the Corner Office is brought to you by Synovus Bank, championing business growth through trusted relationship-driven banking throughout the Gulf Coast region. Tom Hall is a legendary Tampa Bay leader. The founder of crisis communications firm Tucker Hall, Tom has served on multiple committees across Tampa and was a key leader in bringing the Florida Aquarium to town. The Business Observer writes about civic leaders like Tom every day online and every week in print. Go to businessobserverfl.com to subscribe. Hello, and welcome to the Business Observer's From the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Tom Hall, chairman of strategic communications firm Tucker Hall. Tom, thanks for being here and welcome.
Thank you for having me. I enjoy being on camera. It gives me something to do.
Excellent. I love it. All right, Tom. Well, you've had this illustrious career in marketing and media and public relations and done some really cool things. We're going to get into that. But I'd like our audience to get to know Tom Hall a little bit better, sort of behind the scenes. So we're going to start with 3 random questions. You ready?
Okay, I'll try to come up with 3 random answers.
Let's do it. What is the best meal that you cook or prepare?
A Jimmy Dean's frozen breakfast muffin. I do not know how to cook anything, but I can cook that Jimmy Dean's. It takes about a minute and a half. And my friend Ken Jewett says that Jimmy Dean's is going to kill me, but I don't believe it. I think I'm just fine.
You're doing just fine, Tom. You've survived. You're doing just fine. I love it. All right, excellent. Second question. If you can go back, or I should say, if you can time travel, would you go back in time or into the future, and why?
You know, I had a good, growing up, I grew up in Lakeland, had a great group of friends. I went to college and enjoyed my college days. So sometimes I'm sending my grandson to college. And so I thought, maybe I should just go with him. Those were the days of my life. So I'd go back to college.
Excellent. Love it. Relive it. That's why my 17-year-old is also applying for colleges as well. So I'm touring all these schools in Florida. And there's a lot of, we didn't have that when I was in college 35 years ago.
Right. I think it's more fun today. I really do.
100%. Totally agree. All right, excellent. So you've been in this field for quite some time, but last question, if you could have another job, another field, another thing, what would be your dream job?
I would work with Al Gore in his group called Climate, his climate group that's trying to get people to understand climate change and trying to get people to take action. Climate Reality. He has a great organization in Washington. I think that would be a lot of fun to run.
Excellent. All right. I love it. Okay. So, Tom, we're going to go to your career. Tell us about, before we kind of get into some interesting things you've done, what is Tucker Hall? What is that firm about? What's kind of the niche that Tucker Hall has in the business community?
Yeah, we solve complex communications problems. We do a lot of work in the crisis field, probably more than anyone else in this part of the world. And that's an interesting field. It's a good business because we Americans are always getting ourselves into trouble. But it's a fascinating group of people. We have bright folks working with us. A lot of them have degrees in political science or English, and we are 17 of us spread over 4 offices. We work on fascinating projects. Unfortunately, we have to sign non-disclosure agreements on all of them, so I can't tell you.
So we're not going deep into the well of Tucker Hall stories on this podcast, then.
Well, I'll give you one quick hint, and that I hate to say this because it makes me look even older than I am, but one of the first projects Jeff Tucker and I worked on when we got started, we were called in on the Monica Lewinsky case by the Democratic Party. Yes, and our job was to get newspaper editors around the country to write editorials about why Bill Clinton should not be impeached. And most editorials said Bill Clinton shouldn't be impeached. It turned out to be a waste of time, but we do all kinds of things, and you never can tell where a crisis is going to come from. They're all different.
Yeah. Well, and they're all different, and that maybe that's part of this answer. But sticking on that point, is there, we have a lot of business leaders in our audience. Is there one or two points that are general, even though every case is different, that you would tell a business owner, business leader, when the SHIT hits the fan, here's what I say you should do, besides call Tucker Hall, but what are those one or two key points that every leader needs to know how to do in a crisis?
One thing that we often tell people is, first of all, tell the truth. If you tell the truth, you're going to take a 5-day story and it's going to be a 4-month story. Tell the truth, tell all of it, and tell it right now. And that's the best solution for dealing with a crisis. Most people get in trouble with a cover-up or delay. The lawyer says we can't say that now. We're going to wait and say it later. Well, you just extended the life of your crisis.
Yeah, the cover-up's worse than the crime. We're going back to Nixonian times there. The cover-up.
Well, we got a few going on right now in Washington. That's like,
we sure do.
It's like sure one every week.
We sure do. So something else I learned in your background, that you helped create something called the Creative Seminar. What was the Creative Seminar, and kind of how did you come up with that idea?
Well, I started out in the advertising business in Tampa in my 20s, and I was working with Bob Enslin. We had a company called Enslin and Hall, and I thought, wouldn't it be nice if the ad club, the advertising club, could bring in some speakers from New York and Los Angeles, and we could hear from some of the experts in advertising in the business, the best of the best. So I put together an idea for a seminar, and I brought in some folks from New York, some couple from London, couple from LA, and it sold out immediately. And I decided, first of all, the ad club was very nervous about it because they were risking money and risking time, and they were scared, and I don't blame them. So I gave them some money, and I said, I'll just take it and run with it. And we ended up being the largest education provider to the advertising industry in the country. We were in New York, Chicago, LA, Dallas, Boston, and we brought in people who were creative directors. It's all about creativity. Creative directors, graphic designers, people who wrote commercials and wrote other kinds of things related to advertising and marketing. And we had a faculty of about 15 people a year when we did it. I sold it to Adweek magazine in 1989 and ran it 3 more years. They wanted to be the leader in advertising education, and I was happy to sell that title to them. But it was a lot of fun because you get to meet advertising people are more interesting to talk to than a lot of people in business.
I would think so. The creative mindset, right?
You probably know that because you probably deal with a lot of them. But these are really talented people, and it was fascinating. I loved the experience.
Yeah, is there one or two things that stand out that you learned about the creative process or about being creative for your business that you learned during that time?
Well, a lot of it is to have the courage to stand up for your own convictions. A lot of the advertising we see is bad. And sometimes it's bad because there were some great ideas on the table, but the client said, I don't like that. We're going to do something safer, or that might offend somebody, or we're not talking to our main audience, or whatever. And you can take a great advertising or marketing idea or any creative idea, and you can beat it to death. And that's what happens with a lot of commercials we see. I don't think the advertising we see today is nearly as good as it was 20 years ago.
Interesting. So you think 20, 25 years ago, the advertising was more on the creative side and better and
more exciting, more fun.
Yeah.
And And if you look, Mark, at European advertising, I used to get the Clios. The company I sold to owned the Clio Awards. I used to get the Clios every year, and the European ads are so breathtakingly interesting compared to ours. We're we're so hard sell. And you see a commercial 20 times, you're just sick of it because it wasn't funny the first time. And I think we could be a lot more creative today than we are.
You must shake your head in disgust. I don't put words in your mouth, but the pharmaceutical industry, that advertising is so uncreative, right?
I,
Those repetitive. I mean, I don't mean to pick on that one industry, but it's pretty lame, right?
it's awful. And they have this formulaic thing where they talk about whatever it is, and sometimes they sing about it, and that's
Right.
even. Um, they sing about it, and then they have to go through the things that this medicine can do to you, like your leg may fall off, your hand may fall out, you may go blind, your hair may fall out. And while they do that, they have something on the screen to distract you, so you won't pay attention to all this awful stuff that could happen to you. They all follow the same formula. It's terrible. The pharmaceutical advertising now, it's a huge category today. And back when I was in the business, they hardly advertised at all. The other high big category are personal injury lawyers.
Yes.
They're a huge category today. They were not back then.
Yeah. Who does it right today? What are some campaigns, brands, companies, entities, restaurants, whatever? Who do you think, man, they do really good advertising and marketing?
Hyundai does a pretty good job with their cars. They have some clever ideas. Some of the food companies do. There are not many that are really, really clever and really fun. Now and then, Budweiser will do a great ad along with three or four bad ones. But beer usually can have a fun. You can have a fun time selling a beer. They usually do a pretty good job. I watch the Super Bowl commercials. That's sort of the big game for everybody. They all want to show off what they've done, and so you can probably see the best 10% of the advertising business on the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Let's switch gears a little bit, Tom. You also have what I think is really interesting sort of segment of your career. You have this book, Ruthless Focus, that you wrote about. And that is something, again, that our audience, business owners, business leaders, company founders, Ruthless Focus. What is sort of some of the takeaways of that book for business leaders?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to do. I had a co-author in Wally Bach, who's a very talented guy. Here was my idea. My idea is so many companies say exactly the same thing, do exactly the same thing as all their competitors. If you look at one insurance agent, you've seen most all of them. Yeah. Now and then, you'll find one that does something extraordinarily well. And I said, you need to ruthlessly focus on an extraordinary difference that separates you between your competitor. I have a lot of examples. One of them is Publix. Publix has the corporate strategy on the front of the store where shopping is a pleasure. And everything they do is built around that strategy, from the size of the parking spaces to the design of the store to the service, best service in the grocery business. They follow that strategy religiously. And you can do that in a company. The key is to find out what it is you need to do to separate yourself from everybody else, and then ruthlessly focus on that.
Find what you're good at, focus on it. Tom, talking about leadership, you've built Tucker Hall into this, 4 offices, Southeast, lots of big clients. What are some of the keys to leading a firm? What makes good leadership for you as you've grown Tucker Hall, helped grow Tucker Hall over the years?
Well, I've been lucky to have a lot of good people with me, Jeff Tucker and Darren Richards and Bill Carlson. And one of it is you have to take good care of the folks that you work with, because it's a business of collaborative brains. And if you don't take care of all those brains and treat them well and treat your clients well, you just won't last. You need, in a crisis, you need the very best thinking that's possible. So you need to create an atmosphere where people can give you their best thinking and not be afraid of it.
Keep that sort of open line so that people are just coming in and saying, here's what I think we should do.
Yeah, this may be a crazy idea, but what about this? Often in a crisis, and this happens in other situations too, you may have seen, sometimes companies will have a problem or get into trouble or they have a sales slump and they panic. And they think, oh my God, we can't make any decisions because the last 2 decisions we made were wrong.
Yeah.
So let's just freeze up. And it's important to get people to get out of that freeze because you never solve anything that way. So we need the kind of brains that can see through that and work through that very carefully. It's a unique group. It's a unique way of thinking.
Yeah, definitely. Who's been some of the influence in your life, Tom? Who are some of your leadership mentors and what have you learned from them?
Well, when I was in a senior at college at Florida Southern College, I was a full-time aide to a guy who was a House representative, state representative named Lawton Childs. And I was the first aide he ever had. And I was a high school senior. And he was a wonderful guy, by the way. He really thought about, he believed that the reason he was on this earth was to help people. He really did. So one day he comes to me and he says, Tom, I want to run for the state Senate. And I want you to manage my campaign. I'm a college senior. Anyway, I couldn't say no. Lawton didn't like to raise money, so we never had any money. But he gave me his son, Bud, and his son, Ed's friends to work for free. So it was sort of like managing a circus. But Lawton was such a good person, and he was focused on what he wanted to do, and he was always something about doing good or helping people. So he was the first person that I think really affected me as a leader.
Did you walk with him? He was walking Lawton, right? Did you go any long walks with him?
I drove. I mean, who wants to walk from one end of the state of Florida to the other?
Seriously.
And he came up with that idea himself. A lot of people took credit for it. He then went on to become governor. Then he was a United States senator and then governor. He died in the governor's mansion. He had a wonderful career, but he separated himself. And talk about ruthless focus. He separated himself from his other competitors by saying, I'm going to show people I know Florida. I'm going to walk from one end of it to the other. And he did.
Yeah, pretty amazing. And you brought up his son, Ed, who's also been a guest on this podcast, on the From the Corner Office podcast, with his amazing restaurant hospitality career over some decades.
Oh yeah, Ed's a great guy, and he has got restaurants down on the West Coast. I hear he sold some of his restaurants.
Yes, he did.
The Sandbar was the big one. I remember when his dad and Wilbur Boyd bought the Sandbar. It was a little wooden shack on Anna Maria. The floors had dust all over them. They had a bowling machine, one of those things you slide the ball down, and that was about it. And Ed made it into a really, really successful restaurant, and then added some other restaurants too. All those child kids are smart.
They are, for sure. So going back to the firm and leadership, I wanted to ask, you have a lot of these smart people in the room, right? And you're figuring out these complex crisis, high pressure situations. As a leader, how do you handle conflict when either the client's like, no way, we're not doing that, or internal conflict among the staff and the team? How do you handle conflict as a leader?
You talk it out. And you talk it out until everybody is so tired they go on to something else. No, seriously, you have to, because a lot of people have strong opinions. And you can have 3 ways to solve a problem. three legitimate ways. So the key is to figure out which one is absolutely the best and does the least harm. And in order to get there, you got to just talk it out. And it involves patience, but the key is it involves respect for other people's ideas. And a lot of companies are sort of militaristic. I said to do this. We're not going to do that. We're going to do this. And you don't have a chance to explain why you're doing what you're doing, and they make a bad decision. But if you take the time to really analyze every opinion, you can get somewhere.
Yeah. I want to switch gears, Tom, to one last sort of line of questions. Recently, Tampa, sort of the community, celebrated the 30-year anniversary of the Florida Aquarium, and you were a big part of getting that off the ground and going, and which you wrote this excellent column about it in the Business Observer. Take us back 30, I guess even more, 33, 34, 35 years. What was it like to get going on what's now the Florida Aquarium?
Well, it was, it was difficult. One reason is no one gives any money to aquariums around here. We give all our money to stadiums. If I let the Florida Aquarium and Fish Stadium, we probably could have gotten some government money. At that time, downtown Tampa had some beautiful high-rise offices. We still do. But like most cities, St. Pete the same, at 5:15, you could shoot a gun down the street and you wouldn't hit anybody because everybody went to the suburbs. This was a typical problem of post-war cities in America. When the suburbs became popular, downtowns became unpopular. No one was living in downtown Tampa. Not one person except the 600 people in jail up there by the interstate. And they were not interested in urban renewal, I can tell you that. They were more interested in urban escape. So we found out about this thing. I heard about it from my friend at the partnership, and I said, we got to find out about this aquarium. We found out 31 cities went after it. It ended up being us and St. Pete. We managed to beat St. Pete by raising $500,000. You know who was behind the effort in St. Pete? The St. Pete Times and Florida Power. They said, we want this aquarium. And so that's who we were up against. We were a new organization, the Tampa Downtown Partnership. We had no money. But the good news is we were able to prevail. And it really turned out to be a spark that changed downtown Tampa. We wanted something that would attract people during the day. And we had a performing arts center. We had a civic center. All these things, people come and they leave. They're and the same thing as with stadiums. They're mostly empty. We wanted something that was alive during the day that would make people want to live here. And that's why we went after the aquarium. It was not easy. We had a tough time in the early days. We defaulted on our bonds, but now it is an incredible success. Our revenues this year are $44 million. When we were involved, we were fighting over light bulbs. I mean, it's really doing well. Roger German doing a good job. We've had good support over the years, great support from the community, and it's added. A fellow in the real estate business, a couple, said the aquarium is responsible for about $8 billion in urban renewal.
Well, sure. No aquarium, then no Jeff Vinnick, no Water Street, all the other sort of dominoes that set up there without the aquarium starting it off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But if you haven't been, they've got new exhibits. It's a great experience. Kids love it. We have over 1 million people a year. But it's a great example of a catalyst. And when you're trying to turn around a downtown, that's one of the toughest things to do. It really is.
One last question. We went a little bit back in time. Going to the future, Tom, what is next for you as we're looking into 2026 here? What do you got coming up? What are you excited about going into the next year?
I'm spending time, I'm setting up a foundation that's going to educate people on global warming. And that's something I'm really excited about. I've joined the group up in Washington, and I think that it's a problem that no one wants to face. I mean, our president says it's a hoax, but it isn't. It's real. And we're here in Florida. We're probably the most vulnerable state to global warming in the country because of the number of coasts that we have. And it's caused us to have these horrible hurricanes, more of them and worse. And look around the country, the weather, you watch the weather nationally every week. There's a fire somewhere. There are floods in 2 or 3 places. There's a storm somewhere. There are tornadoes where there never were tornadoes. These are all results of global warming. And that's something that I really want to spend time on. I think it is so important to all of us, particularly those of us in Florida.
Well, we have sun in our name, the Sunshine State, right? So excellent. Tom Hall, Tucker Hall, thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Thank you, Mark. I have enjoyed every minute of it.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordy. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.